I'm a twisted female side character who loves being imprisoned by the domineering CEO. After transmigrating into the book, I was imprisoned together with the tragic heroine in the villain's luxurious villa. The heroine was overwhelmed with grief and indignation, while I was rubbing my hands in anticipation. Isn't this exactly the imprisonment play I've always dreamed of? So when the male lead appeared before us like a deity and said he would take us away, I hesitated. I turned to look at the gloomy-faced villain. Brother, can you really bear to let me leave you? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. As a 21st century girl in the prime of her youth, I had transmigrated into an early male-oriented power fantasy novel. The bad news was, I wasn't the female lead. I had no special abilities, no system, and was just a nameless extra in the book. The good news is, I've been captured and imprisoned together with the female lead by the main villain. According to the plot, I shouldn't die right at the beginning. My new identity after transmigrating into the book is the daughter of the capital's richest man, named Wen, and sitting across from me right now is none other than the female lead of this book, Liu Bingxi. As expected of the female lead, her name suits her perfectly, with delicate, beautiful features and a pure, moon-like aura. She gives off a vibe that makes people want to protect her. Oh, by the way, I heard she is also the most talented woman in the capital. Today, as I was returning to the capital from outside the city, I happened to run into Liu Bingxi going alone to the Guardian Temple to pray. Coincidentally, we both got off to rest at the same place, and then, as luck would have it, we were kidnapped together, according to the plot of the book. I know that the one who kidnapped us this time is the main antagonist of the story, the third prince, Jiyu Weiju. Speaking of this villain, he's actually quite interesting. His maternal grandfather was a first-rank general, his uncles were all ruthless men with military power, but he himself was also outstanding. At the age of 15, he went to the military camp and achieved remarkable military exploits. Back then, I stayed up all night reading the entire book. And what impressed me the most was this major villain, a character I had many complaints about. I never expected karma to come so quickly. One day, I was kidnapped by him. Inside the carriage, Liu Bingxi looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I am Liu Bingxi. May I ask for your name? This matter is entirely my fault. Their target is me, and I've dragged you into this. But you don't need to worry too much. The Crown Prince will definitely come to rescue us. Please don't be afraid. After saying this, she began to sob quietly again. The Crown Prince mentioned by the female lead is none other than the male lead, Jiyu Xuanji. Like all classic power fantasy novels, the male lead started with a miserable fate as a loner destined for misfortune, yet he walked the path of a chosen one, ultimately standing out among the many princes to claim the throne, ruling the kingdom with a harem of 3,000. The female lead is the granddaughter of the Grand Tutor, the childhood sweetheart of the Crown Prince, and one of the male lead's harem members. I waved my hand gently and comforted her in a soft voice. I am Wen. At this point, crying won't help. It seems we don't know where to go for the time being. All we can do is save ourselves. Why can I be so confident in saving myself? Because I have mastered the original plot, and according to the storyline, the main antagonist won't harm the female lead this time. Just as I was lost in thought, a cold voice drifted in from outside the carriage. How do you plan to save yourself? I rubbed my temples, completely unaware that Liu Bingxi's face had turned deathly pale upon hearing the voice. I leaned close to Liu Bingxi and whispered, I've been traveling for years and have a great sense of direction. Even though we've been inside the carriage the whole time, I can tell we're still on the main road. Outside the city are mostly the estates of high-ranking officials and nobles, all well known in the capital. Based on the distance we've traveled, we'll have to play it by ear. I'm telling you, when we reach our destination, Suddenly, I felt a chill run down my spine. A woman's intuition told me something was wrong, so I slowly turned my head. I saw the carriage curtain lifted slightly, revealing a young man dressed in black with ink-black hair sitting outside. He had a handsome face, a tall nose bridge, and slightly thin lips. Wow, a handsome guy. And exactly my type. Teach third prince. Liu Bingxi's trembling voice suddenly rang out, snapping me back to reality. So this was the main antagonist in the book, third prince Jiyu Weiju. Ji Weiju swiftly slipped into the carriage. I quickly moved closer to Liu Bingxi's side. Although Liu Bingxi was scared herself, she still blocked Ji Weizhou's line of sight as he looked me over. Third Prince, I don't believe I've ever offended you. Why have you kidnapped me? And this Wanwan girl doesn't even know either of us. You'd better let us go, otherwise, Xuanji and my grandfather won't let you get away with this. Ji Weiju leaned lazily against the carriage, raised his eyelids, and in the most casual tone, said the most infuriating words, "Oh Tilda, isn't she your maid? I simply won't let you go. What can you possibly do about it? Maid? May I ask, where do I look like a maid? Have you ever seen a maid as beautiful as me?" Liu Bingxi was momentarily stunned. She hadn't expected the usually aloof third prince to respond like that. Instantly, she widened her eyes, glaring at him with puffed-up cheeks, her hands clenched into fists. The atmosphere inside the carriage suddenly turned rather strange. With a mindset of making the best of the situation, I managed to fall asleep in the swaying carriage. I don't know how much time had passed when the carriage finally came to a stop. Wanwan, wake up. Someone seemed to nudge me beside me, and I jolted awake. As I sat up too quickly, I bumped my head against the roof of the carriage, holding my forehead. I suddenly heard a mocking voice. How stupid. I glared fiercely at Ji Weiju. He lifted the carriage curtain and stepped out ahead of us. After getting off the carriage, what came into view was a detached courtyard. I took the opportunity to look around. The estate was remote, with no one in sight. Liu Bingxi held my hand, and I patted the back of hers. Together, we followed the main antagonist into the courtyard, only to discover that there was much more to it than met the eye. As expected of the great villain, even a suburban villa is built so luxuriously. I admired the scenery along the way and unknowingly arrived at the main hall. Afterward, I was led to the front hall. Ji Weiju casually took a seat in the main chair and then gave an order. Then the maids came in carrying various accessories and clothes. I was stunned by the sight before me. What strange preferences does this villain have? On one side, the maids held various accessories. Golden-laid fragrant wood prayer beads with jade cicadas, coral bracelets, mutton fat jade pendants with coiled flower patterns, and long pine and crane hairpins made of pure gold. On the other side, they held various dresses, plain gauze garments, water-cloud satin dresses, dazzling. As a modern person, although I've seen all kinds of jewelry, I couldn't help but feel somewhat shocked when I first laid eyes on a genuine ancient antique. TSK. Is this what old money from ancient times looks like? Just one random bracelet here probably amounts to my entire year's earnings. Witnessing everything happening before me, if it weren't for this transmigration into the book, if I hadn't been kidnapped together with the female lead, I probably wouldn't have had the chance to experience this. Ji Weiju glanced at me with a smug expression and said, "Miss Liu, make your choice." Liu Bingxi's face was pale, his eyes filled with disdain. "Third Prince, I ask you to release us." Ji Weizhou's face immediately darkened. Soon he composed himself, stood up, took a goose-yellow palace dress from a maid, then fetched a jade bracelet, walked over to Liu Bingxi, and began gesturing with them, seemingly unsatisfied. After a while, they changed into another one, piece by piece, until the last garment. It finally seemed he had had enough fun, and even with Liu Bingxi's remarkably good temper, she was ultimately beginning to lose a bit of patience. He casually pointed to a white gauze feathered dress, then picked up a jade hairpin and said to the maid behind him, "Take Miss Liu to change her clothes." As a descendant of a prestigious family, when had Liu Bingxi ever been treated like this? Despite her excellent upbringing, she could no longer hold back her anger. Her face instantly flushed crimson as she glared fiercely at Ji Weiju, who had already returned to his seat. "Third Prince, what exactly do you want? How dare you humiliate me like this?" With that, she picked up the jade hairpin and was about to smash it to the ground. My heart trembled. Oh my, this is jade. So I hurriedly stepped forward, stopped Liu Bingxi, and firmly grasped the jade hairpin in my hand. "Don't be angry, don't be angry." Why bother getting worked up over him? After saying this, I turned back to look at Ji Weiju and spoke with what I thought was righteous indignation. "Well, a gentleman doesn't force others. Since Bingxi is unwilling, I'll change for her instead." Ji Weiju seemed to have found something amusing. giving me a faint glance. "Oh, so you're willing to take her place?" I nodded eagerly, but in my heart, I was secretly thinking, real gold and silver, only a fool wouldn't want them. If I can return to the modern era, and if I can bring these things back with me, I could make a small fortune that would bring me one step closer to early retirement. Under my earnest anticipation, Gu Weiju lazily shook his head. "I just won't give it to you." Then he waved his hand, dismissed. The maids came as quietly as they left, taking with them my heart full of dreams of getting rich. "What the heck? Are you out of your mind? What kind of move is this?" Just as I was cursing the villain in my heart, a sudden gurgle, gurgle, gurgle sound rang out. In such a silent room, under such an eerie atmosphere, my stomach growled. It was protesting. It was hungry. Gu Weiju chuckled softly, then shot me a disdainful look. My face flushed bright red as I stared awkwardly at the tips of my shoes and mumbled, sorry about that. I was in such a hurry when I left home today that I haven't eaten all day. I'm a little hungry." Liu Bingxi was clearly taken aback too, probably having never encountered someone so shameless before. Just when I thought Gu Weiju was going to make things difficult for us, he waved to the maid behind him. "Serve the meal." The maid acknowledged and withdrew. It seems even the main antagonist has a human side. Then Gu Weiju led the two of us to the next room to prepare for the meal. Upon entering the room, Liu Bingxi refused to sit down no matter what, simply standing to the side. Unable to do otherwise, I had no choice but to stand beside her. Before long, the servants brought in a variety of dishes, and in an instant, the table was fully covered. Gu Weiju let out a light hum. Seeing that both of us were now looking at him, he patted the empty seat beside him, signaling for Liu Bingxi to come sit there. But to my surprise, Liu Bingxi merely glanced at it before turning her head away, seemingly expressing her displeasure. But Gu Weiju wasn't annoyed. Instead, he unhurriedly ladled a bowl of chicken soup. The white porcelain contrasted with his slender fingers, and combined with his dignified demeanor, it actually made me swoon. Elegant, truly elegant. After filling the bowl with soup, Gu Weiju held it and stood up, walking in Liu Bingxi's direction. "Miss Liu, stop making a fuss. It's been a long day. You should eat something first." Liu Bingxi shot him an extremely disgusted look, then turned her head away and waved her hand, causing the soup to spill and the bowl to shatter. "Third Prince, what exactly do you want? I won't eat anything from you. Now please let us go and send us home." Crash! The bowl shattered. I stared at the spilled soup and the broken bowl on the floor. At that moment, my heart shattered along with them. "Miss, wasting food is shameful. A perfectly good bowl of soup, what did it ever do to you? Why take it out on the food?" Gu Weiju, though embarrassed, didn't get angry. Instead, his smile grew even more unsettling. He suddenly grabbed Liu Bingxi's chin, forcing her to turn and meet his gaze. "Don't want to eat? Then I'll make sure you do." With that, he dragged Liu Bingxi to the dining table, roughly pressed her into a chair, picked up a meatball, and prepared to force-feed her. Liu Bingxi resignedly closed her eyes, a tear sliding down from the corner. "Let her go. Take me instead," I suddenly shouted. I was just playing the hero to save the beauty. I couldn't bear to see a beauty in tears. It definitely wasn't for the food. Liu Bingxi opened her beautiful eyes and looked at me with gratitude, which soon turned into deep worry. Fearing that my actions might provoke the villain, Gu Weiju stared at me blankly, as if trying to see right through me. Taking advantage of that moment of distraction, Liu Bingxi broke free from her seat, ran to my side, and grabbed my hand. I gently patted her hand to comfort her, then secretly cheered myself on internally before looking pleadingly at Gu Weiju by the dining table. "Miss Liu, since she doesn't want to eat, let me take her place. I'll bear all of this for her. Come on, delicious food, all come into my belly." Oh, this time, I had completely piqued Gu Weiju's interest. He didn't bother to hide his curiosity and began examining me without any restraint. I straightened my posture and took a step forward. Yes, he watched me leisurely, pulled out a handkerchief, and meticulously wiped his hands without saying a word. The smile on his face only grew brighter. Just as I thought he would ignore me, he calmly and slowly said, "Want to eat? I'm not giving you any." "What the?" I was about to speak up and try once more to secure my right to a meal. Standing beside me, Liu Bingxi suddenly squeezed my hand, looking at me with a tearful voice. Wanwan, we've known each other for less than half a day. There's really no need for this. Don't force yourself to endure hardship for my sake. Then she turned her head toward the main antagonist, her tone resolute. Third Prince, you have all sorts of methods at your disposal. Direct them at me, I can bear it. I only ask that you not make things difficult for Wanwan. Watching Liu Bingxi shield me behind her like a mother hen, I felt a twinge of genuine emotion in my heart, but at this moment, I was on the verge of tears, crying inwardly, kind-hearted heroine, I'm truly starving, I want to eat, woo-woo. Jiyu Weiju suddenly seemed to have discovered something amusing, looking back and forth between the two of us, stroking his chin and saying, so that's how it is. Jiyu Weiju slowly walked up to Liu Bingxi, staring into her eyes as if trying to see through her. You're so sure you don't want her to bear it for you? Then I insist she will. With that, he pulled me out from behind Liu Bingxi. Wanwan, I nodded blankly, then was pulled by him to the dining table and pressed down onto a chair. I was secretly pondering his intentions when suddenly a spoon appeared in front of me, holding a sweet and sour meatball. Before I could react, he pried my mouth open with the spoon and stuffed the meatball inside. Mamarame, did the big villain just feed me? What is he trying to do? The meatball entered my mouth, a sweet and sour taste filling my mouth. I chewed a few times, but the meat was tough. Instantly, I failed to manage my expression, and a look of disgust appeared on my face. It seemed the prince's chef skills were quite mediocre. Disgusted, not tasty, I nodded reflexively. Then suddenly realized my mistake and shook my head frantically. But Jiyu Weiju suddenly became interested, staring at me like a predator, and then another meatball was stuffed into my mouth. I never expected his sudden move, which almost made me choke. I chewed hastily and swallowed the meatball in my mouth with effort, my eyelids twitching slightly. Stop, 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 I can't eat anymore, the meat is too tough. Instead of getting angry, the villain laughed and forcefully fed me another spoonful. Think carefully about your situation, only I can say when to stop. After struggling to swallow the third meatball, I glanced at the old duck soup on the table, looked at Jiyu Weiju, and pointed toward the soup. Can I have some soup? Jiyu Weiju looked at me. Oh, Tilda wants some soup. I nodded. Then I heard that infuriating phrase again. I just won't. There's a swear word I'm not sure if I should say. Jiyu Weiju watched the expression on my face, his smile gradually turning perverted. He leisurely scooped a bowl of soup, and finally, under my burning gaze, he took a spoonful and then put it into his own mouth. It tastes good. He looked at me provocatively. I was furious. The kind of anger that can't be soothed. What kind of lunatic is this? Wait, lunatic, oh right. This big villain is a lunatic, a total yanda. I suddenly remembered the setting in the book. The best way to deal with a severe yanda is to defy him. Thank heavens, thank earth, I think I've grasped the right way to survive. Before I could even speak, Liu Bingxi, standing beside me, couldn't stand it any longer. Third Prince, Wanwan is innocent. Before Liu Bingxi could finish, I shouted loudly, I don't want it anymore. I won't eat it. I won't drink it. It's so disgusting. I'm not eating it. Never again. And I won't drink your soup either. Ph. With that, he was about to get up and leave. In the blink of an eye, Jiyu Weiju, with a cold expression, grabbed me and spoke in an unfriendly tone. Sit down. Who said you could leave? Don't want to eat or drink anymore. Eat and drink for me. I put on a look of grim determination, but in my heart, I was overjoyed. With a disgusted expression, I said, then you have to feed me, otherwise I won't eat or drink anything. Jiyu Weiju once again uttered that familiar golden phrase, I refused to, but this time, those words sounded like heavenly music to my ears. After that, I finally got to fill my stomach as I had wished. By then, it was already dark outside. With my stomach full, the next problem to consider was where to stay for the night. I stood up, walked over to Liu Bingxi who was already stunned, snorted coldly, then shouted at the villain, tonight I want to be with Miss Liu. Would rather sleep in the firewood shed than on your lousy bed. Yes, Liu Bingxi echoed in a daze, and so, Liu Bingxi and I were forced to stay in separate rooms in different courtyards. Woohoo Tilda. It seems there are benefits to being a fan of the original work. To talk about this major antagonist, he actually doesn't have any major flaws, he's just a yanda. However, He never indiscriminately killed innocent people. In the context of ancient imperial society, he could be considered an unconventional kind of good person, according to the plot in the book. Jiyu Weiju only kidnapped the female lead and imprisoned her in a separate courtyard. However, he never abused her or did anything else out of line. She was provided with food and drink as needed, and whatever she wanted was delivered by servants. As for the female lead, Liu Bingxi, she had a strong sense of pride, perfectly embodying all the qualities expected of a legitimate daughter from a prominent ancient family: rejection, silence, and indifference, as a modern-day corporate drone. My dream is to idle away my life, lie flat, and wait to be taken care of. Of course, it would be wonderful to have someone provide for me with good food and drink. Who wouldn't want to live a life of leisure like a salted fish? Heaven has eyes. This overwhelming fortune has finally come my way. Early the next morning, I went out and wandered around. Passing by a pavilion, I saw Jiyu Weiju leisurely eating his breakfast. TSK, looking at all the food on the table. What a real waste. Jiyu Weiju slowly ate a small steamed bun, his demeanor elegant. My nose twitched. Ah, it smells so good. I glanced at the big villain again and sighed inwardly. The evil feudal society. My eyes shifted, and I stepped into the pavilion, saying as I walked, "Bingxi, did you smell that? The taste of this small steamed bun is just average, not even as good as the ones from the alley near my home. I wouldn't normally eat this kind of thing." Entering the pavilion, I feigned surprise as I looked at Jiyu Weiju. "Oh my, Your Highness, is this what you usually eat?" Jiyu Weiju's face turned cold, his brows furrowing. "You don't usually eat this." He forcefully shoved the chopsticks into my hand, his tone icy as he commanded, "Eat." With great reluctance, I picked up the chopsticks, picked up a small steamed bun, and with immense unwillingness, put it into my mouth and chewed. "I'm sorry, I take back what I said yesterday. These buns are really delicious, thin skin, tender meat, and full of juice." And so, I reluctantly ate an entire steamer basket of them. In the days that followed, I lived as comfortably as a fish in water, having mastered how to handle the big villain. It was truly wonderful. When I saw jewelry I liked, I would criticize it as tacky, saying noble ladies in the capital would never wear it. When I see fine fabrics, I would say that as the daughter of the wealthiest family in the capital, I've seen it all, and such outdated fabric is simply not worthy of being worn by me. But the next day, these jewels would appear in my room, and those fabrics would be made into clothes by the seamstresses in the other courtyard, which I would then wear. Every time, he would have a stern face and speak in a cold tone, forcing me to wear them, while I was just a helpless little wretch. It's not that I have no backbone. I was forced into it. He made me submit. In just a few short days, I had become a victim who had food delivered to my mouth, clothes dressed on me, and all the jewelry I could want. Winning at life while lying down is just that simple. As a long-since adult prince of the great Qian dynasty, Jiyu Weiju had to attend court every single day, rising early each morning to rush to the capital for the morning meeting. Come to think of it, it's quite pitiful. It seems wage slaves of ancient and modern times share some common ground, and every time he went to court, I was sleeping. He attended court, I slept. He handled official business, I slept. When he returned to the annex, I was still taking my afternoon nap. While he was handling official business, I was taking a nap. After returning, he still couldn't rest, as there were piles of matters waiting for him to deal with in the study. I only found out by asking the servants in the residence that he was in charge of the Ministry of War. Considering he used to be a great general, his current position in the Ministry of War is quite a fitting match for his expertise. Jiyu Weiju was in his study, frowning as he watched his subordinates arguing fiercely over the allocation of this year's military pay. Suddenly, a burst of women's laughter came from the garden, and the study instantly fell silent. A room full of grown men looked at each other in confusion. Jiyu Weiju furrowed his brow and waved his hand. "Mushan, who's in the garden? What are they doing?" Mushan clasped his hands and replied, "Your Highness, it seems Miss Wen is hosting some kind of gathering." Jiyu Weiju pinched the bridge of his nose. "A party? Are the servants in the mansion really that idle?" Mushan hurriedly explained. "I asked Steward you, and it was you who personally gave the order. saying that she was too idle every day, only knowing how to sleep. So you had the servants in the mansion keep her company. In the study, the subordinates sitting on both sides exchanged glances, none of them having expected that the third prince, who had always kept his distance from women, had actually been hiding a canary. The atmosphere turned strangely tense. Jiyu Weizhou's fingers tapped leisurely on the desk, and only after a long while did he recall that such a thing had indeed happened. Though Mu Shan kept his head lowered, he couldn't help but secretly observe his master's expression. Everyone in the Great Qian Kingdom knew that the third prince was the most unpredictable in temperament, his moods impossible to fathom. Ever since when Wanwan had been confined here, the guards, servants, and even the hidden guards in the estate had all been quietly speculating that the third prince had finally met his match. He had fallen into the hands of Miss Wen. They had even started a private betting pool, wagering on whether Miss Wen would become the estate's first mistress. Just as everyone was preparing to bear Jiyu Weizhou's wrath, Mushan suddenly heard his master's lazy voice. "Oh, so she must be exhausted, finally can't just sleep all day, has she been cursing me all along?" As soon as these words were spoken, the room fell into complete silence, and the atmosphere grew even more peculiar. The subordinates suddenly became curious about this Miss Wen that Mushan had mentioned. Who exactly was she to receive such special favor? It seemed their superior's happy event was approaching. Mushan looked up at his master in surprise, as if he didn't recognize him, and cautiously suggested, "Master, perhaps you should go see for yourself." Jiyu Weizhou tilted his head, glanced out the window, pondered for a moment, and said, "You all carry on." Then he stood up and left with Mushan. He left behind a room full of subordinates, along with a room full of hearts eager for gossip. By the time Jiyu Weizhou arrived in the garden, I was holding a young maid's hand, about to teach her how to waltz. I gently stroked the young girl's hand, pretending to be a flirtatious rogue. "Little lady, may I have the honor of a dance with you?" I even threw a flirtatious glance at the blushing girl. What a carefree and unrestrained moment. Just as I was getting into the swing of it, I caught sight of Jiyu Weizhou out of the corner of my eye, so I suddenly let go of the little maid's hand and sighed dramatically. "Oh, you little enchantress, I'm exhausted. So tired." The little maid looked at me with a bewildered expression and said softly, "Monster, where do you think you're escaping to?" I was still pretending to be delicate and complaining about being tired when a cold voice suddenly reached my ears. "Having fun, little enchantress." There was no escape, so I had no choice but to turn around. Our eyes met, and I locked gazes with Jiyu Weizhou. Suddenly, a wave of guilt welled up inside me. It probably felt like being caught in the act. While my brain was frozen, Butler Yu suddenly hurried over from afar. "Your Highness, something has happened to Miss Liu." "Miss Liu, Liu Bingxi. What happened to her? What's wrong?" Lately, with all the good food, drinks, and entertainment, living a retirement life ahead of time, I had forgotten that I had transmigrated into a book and that I was imprisoned together with the female lead. Jiyu Weizhou turned to look at Butler Yu, his tone displeased as he asked, "What's wrong with her?" I pricked up my ears, feeling nervous and genuinely worried for the female lead. Since Miss Liu was imprisoned, she has been refusing to eat. Her condition is not looking good now. Jiyu Weizhou frowned, slowly rubbing his thumb and index finger together, then turned to stare at me. "Are you very worried about her?" I nodded, then immediately shook my head. So, I was taken to the courtyard where Liu Bingxi was being held captive. Looking at Liu Bingxi lying on the bed, my heart felt heavy. The woman who was once as radiant as the bright moon now looked haggard and worn. Liu Bingxi slowly opened her eyes. When she saw it was me, her eyes instantly reddened, and she began to sob quietly. "Wanwan, it's my fault for dragging you into this. I'm sorry. How have you been these past few days? Has the third prince given you any trouble?" Then she tremblingly raised her hand and touched my face. "Wanwan, you've gained weight." One of the heroine's virtues that makes her the heroine is her honesty. Seeing that I was in quite good condition, she stopped speaking and revealed a relieved smile. But at this moment, a sudden sense of apology welled up in my heart. "Miss Liu, don't worry. Ever since we were kidnapped together, I've regarded you as my own sister. We must fight to the end." As soon as the words left my mouth, I suddenly let out a long burp. The most awkward thing had happened. Liu Bingxi once again touched my increasingly plump little face, Without changing my expression or skipping a beat, I looked sincerely at Liu Bingxi and said, I was so hungry that I had to dig up tree bark from the garden to eat, or else I'd steal food from Tsuehua outside the yard. Oh, Tsuehua is the big black guard dog, hidden in the shadows. Jiu Weiju, Mu Shan, and Steward Yu twitched at the corners of their eyes, thinking to themselves, only a fool would believe that. Upon hearing my words, Liu Bingxi suddenly cried even louder. Struggling to her feet, she threw herself into my arms. It's my fault, it's all my fault. We both need to be well, you have to eat properly, live well, and so will I. I turned my head and winked toward the shadows. See how simple that was. Jiu Weiju, standing in the shadows, smiled and turned to say something to Butler Yu. In just a moment, a bowl of hot porridge was brought up by the maid. I took the hot porridge from the maid's hands, leaned close to Liu Bingxi by the bedside, and silently fed her. After Liu Bingxi finished her meal, I went to find Jiu Weiju, who at that moment was just about to have his own meal. Tonight's dinner is a whole roasted lamb. My heart instantly burst with joy. I've never had ancient-style roasted whole lamb before. I instantly changed my expression and brought out my Oscar-worthy acting skills. I could never eat something so spicy, and lamb is just too gamey, so I was forced to enjoy a whole roasted lamb once again. Half reluctantly, I picked up a small knife and started carving into the roasted lamb. Indeed, only by doing it yourself can you ensure you're well-fed and well-clothed. Jiu Weiju hastily took a couple of bites before losing interest. He picked up the sweet soup brought by the servant, added a spoonful of chili, and stirred it continuously. What is this for? My internal alarm bells immediately started ringing. No way, this can't be happening. Just as I expected, he actually brought the spoon toward my mouth to feed me. I tilted my head slightly. Just the smell alone was unbearable. Open your mouth, Jiu Weiju said coldly. Do you want me to feed you? What a jerk. I turned my head away in silent protest. Oh, is it that you don't like eating it? Jiu Weiju said slowly. I continued shaking my head. As soon as the words fell, that familiar scent came again. But I insist you eat it. Hearing this, I put on my familiar sycophantic smile. All right, you feed me. I absolutely love this. As the art of war says, strike first to gain the initiative. I placed my hand over his hand holding the spoon, guiding it toward my mouth. But this time, I miscalculated. The familiar formula did not arrive. I awkwardly looked up at Jiu Weiju, who was gazing at me thoughtfully, his tone firm. You did it on purpose. Exposed. Has the villain's IQ finally kicked in? How utterly slow-witted. Suddenly, I felt like dropping the act and shouting at him, I'm done playing this game. But at the same time, there was another voice in my head that kept telling me to enjoy the lazy life and experience a retirement-like existence. I hesitated. Jiu Weiju looked at my dazed expression, frowned, and suddenly put down his bowl. Then he took out a handkerchief and wiped the corner of my mouth. Oh my God, heaven! What has the villain done? My face instantly flushed bright red. As someone who's been single since birth, this was the first time I'd had such an intimate moment with a man. Jiu Weiju was such an aloof and eccentric person. Why would he make such a gentle gesture? Oh my God! Could it be that my appearance has caused the villain to break character? I stared blankly at Jiu Weiju. The man before me was handsome, wealthy, talented, and came from a prestigious family background. His household was orderly, and he maintained his integrity. If we overlooked his personality flaws, in this ancient society ruled by imperial power, he was actually quite exceptional. The atmosphere gradually grew ambiguous. I grew restless, feeling increasingly awkward inside, so I stood up, ready to leave. Suddenly, there was a swift whooshing sound. Before I could even react, I was pulled into a warm embrace, listening to the thumping heartbeat. I felt for the first time that Jiu Weiju wasn't just a character on paper, but a real, flesh-and-blood person. Above my head came Jiu Weiju's signature cold snort. Who gave you the nerve? I looked up at Jiu Weiju. At this moment, he seemed very unfamiliar. Suddenly, the candlelight in the room went out. By the moonlight, I caught a glimpse of figures moving outside the window. Soon, several figures in black entered the room, and from somewhere else, 3 or 4 more people emerged, surrounding Jiu Weiju and me in the middle. The uninvited guest clasped his hands and said, Third Highness, we apologize for the offense. We mean no harm. We are only here to find someone. Is this how you look for someone? Jiyu Weiju said coldly. I shifted my head uneasily, but was immediately pressed back into Jiyu Weiju's embrace. We were just following orders. Tilda. At some point, the hidden guards rushed forward and began grappling with them. No wonder they're the big villain's underlings. They subdued the black-clad men in no time. Then the candlelight was relit in the room, and I grabbed that bowl of dark cuisine and threw it at one of the black-clad men. Where do you think you're running, monster? How dare you scare me, your grandma? The most terrifying thing is when the air suddenly goes quiet. Jiyu Weiju and the hidden guards looked at me, exchanging bewildered glances. I ignored the surrounding gazes, but inwardly, I was blaming myself. According to the plot in the book, these people seem to be here to find Liu Bingxi. Liu Bingxi being saved equals the end of my retirement life. In the dark dungeon, several figures clad in black were imprisoned together. The guards, led by Mu Shan, stood with bowed heads nearby, awaiting their judgment. Meanwhile, I stood on the other side, supporting Liu Bingxi. Jiyu Weiju idly stroked the thumb ring on his hand, lounging lazily in a chair that had been brought for him. He then ordered another chair to be brought over, glanced at me, and tilted his chin, signaling for me to sit. I shook my head. His face instantly turned cold. Liu Bingxi glanced at me uneasily. I patted her hand to reassure her, then walked over and sat down beside him. Only then did Jiyu Weiju's expression soften a little. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, "If you dare do this again, I'll expose you." I rubbed my nose and smiled awkwardly. Liu Bingxi was clearly frightened by this situation, her face growing increasingly pale. Jiyu Weiju took an exquisite dagger from Mu Shan, twirling it casually as he spoke indifferently to the men in black. "I have no patience. You'd better tell the truth. Who sent you, and for what purpose?" The men in black exchanged glances. Just as Jiyu Weiju's patience was about to run out, one of them spoke up. "Third Prince, we meant no offense. We only wanted to rescue Miss Liu." Jiyu Weiju raised his eyes, a faint, ambiguous smile playing on his lips. Tilda here to rescue Miss Liu. Let me guess who sent you, my dear elder brother, the Crown Prince, or perhaps the Grand Tutor." The men in black were visibly taken aback, then suddenly dropped to their knees, clasping their fists. "We beg your highness, the Third Prince, to show mercy and release Miss Liu." Jiyu Weiju's gaze shifted toward me, one hand still twirling the dagger while the other suddenly began toying with a strand of my hair. I was startled by this sudden gesture. My patience is limited, my temper is poor, and my reputation in the capital is even worse. I presume you've heard those rumors. Jiyu Weiju's lazy voice echoed through the cold, damp dungeon. The men in black were visibly taken aback. As if recalling something, their faces contorted with inner conflict. 1, 2, my heart was racing along with Jiyu Weiju's counting. "So handsome, I love it, that aura, tsk. Absolutely unbeatable." Before the count of 3 could even leave his mouth, the men in black seemed to have made up their minds. I'll talk. We're from Qingfeng village. This time, we were hired by Miss Zhao to come here." Jiyu Weiju lifted his eyelids slightly, as if intrigued. Tilda, what for?" "She told us to bring Miss Liu back to the mountain stronghold, and then, Miss Zhao." I suddenly slapped my forehead, perhaps startled by my sudden action. Jiyu Weiju shot me a disdainful glance. Miss Zhao, Zhao Cece, the white moonlight of the male lead Jiyu Xuanji. Later of course also became one of the male lead's harem members, considered Liu Bingxi's #1 rival. On the surface, she appears delicate and harmless, but in reality, she is ruthless and vicious, a formidable character. It was my first time participating in an interrogation, and I never expected it to go so smoothly. It seems the 18 tortures from Qing dynasty dramas won't be witnessed this time. In the end, perhaps intimidated by Jiyu Weiju's powerful aura, the men in black confessed everything clearly and in detail. After that, our group left the dark prison. Liu Bingxi seemed to have lost her soul, letting me lead her out. Just as we stepped out of the dungeon, she suddenly stopped, her eyes slightly red. Looking at me helplessly. "Wanwan, why would Miss Zhao treat me like this?" Jiyu Weiju also stopped in his tracks, turned to look at the two of us, and suddenly said, His Majesty intends to betroth you to me. Did you know? Liu Bingxi was slightly taken aback, then nodded with a faint blush on her face. My heart suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. I looked up at the sky, and my eyes felt a bit sore, with tears welling in her eyes. Liu Bingxi seemed to gather her courage as she looked at Jiyu Weiju and said, "That day, I overheard my grandfather talking with my father about it, but I don't like you, I like Xuanji, and he likes me too, he said so." Jiyu Weiju wore an expression of speechlessness, his lips curling in a cold, disdainful manner as he said, "I don't want to marry you either." Who knew the emperor and the empress dowager would play matchmaker so recklessly? Jiyu Weizhou's face turned dark and cold as he suddenly strode toward the two of us. Liu Bingxi seemed frightened by his expression and quietly hid behind me. Jiyu Weizhou's patience seemed to have run out. Staring at Liu Bingxi behind me, he said mockingly, "I brought you here for two reasons. First, I want to make it clear that I have no interest in you either. I will speak to the emperor and the empress dowager about it. Second, I want you to see my elder brother, the crown prince. For who he really is, he is promiscuous by nature and uses despicable methods. You come from a cold, distant mountain, he is not the right man for you. I'm only telling you this out of respect for your grandfather, whether you believe it or not is up to you." It was the first time I had heard the main villain say so much, and I was quite surprised. Just as I was astonished, he suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist, pulling me to his side. I was jolted awake instantly, staring at him. And recalling how he had held me in his arms when the man in black appeared earlier, my heart felt strange, very strange. I was pulled to Jiyu Weizhou's side, feeling the warmth of his palm on my wrist. Then his voice continued, "Now let's talk about your dear crown prince brother. Ever since you came to the villa, he has been indulging in pleasure every night, either secretly meeting with Zhao Cixi or attending various banquets everywhere. You, his childhood sweetheart, have been completely forgotten. I've said all I need to say, you should think it over carefully." As I looked at Liu Bingxi before me, I suddenly felt a bit of sympathy for her. As a pampered young lady who had been carefully raised and educated by her family since childhood, I wondered if she would be able to come to terms with it. But at this moment, her face grew increasingly pale, her figure desolate, her eyes rimmed red. She lifted her head to look at Jiyu Weizhou. As if still hoping for a sliver of comfort, "He's just too busy, so he sent Cix's people to find me." Jiyu Weizhou's last shred of patience had worn thin, a chilling aura emanating from him. "I never speak falsely. And you were just in the dungeon, you heard the criminal's confession yourself. You're an intelligent person, why keep deceiving yourself? Better to make a clean break early. Why waste the rest of your life?" Liu Bingxi's face twisted in agony as she crouched on the ground, burying her head in her knees, and burst into loud sobs. Jiyu Weizhou gazed coldly at Liu Bingxi. "Wake up, Miss Liu. Let me tell you, it's been so many days since your incident, yet my dear elder brother has never once mentioned you, nor sent anyone to reprimand you. How deeply my dear brother must love you. Did you think I could bring you here without anyone knowing? This also has your grandfather's approval. Seeing you so deeply infatuated, he wanted to take drastic measures to pull you out, so you could see what your beloved Xuanji Gij is truly like." Jiyu Weizhou sneered coldly. "Although I may not be a good match, he, Jiyu Xuanji, is even less worthy." Liu Bingxi lifted her head, looking helplessly at Jiyu Weizhou. "He is the crown prince of a nation, with countless matters to attend to every day. Perhaps he is just busy." Jiyu Weizhou said in exasperation. Indeed, my dear brother has been busy attending poetry gatherings lately, busy listening to music at Li Lake, busy going to Zhao Cix's coming-of-age ceremony." Liu Bingxi stood up, her already pale face growing even more ashen. Jiyu Weizhou took a step forward. "The world says I am cold and heartless, eccentric and perverse, unaware of what love is, but I know that truly loving someone means seeing no one else, finding her everywhere. No matter how good others are, they have nothing to do with me. No matter how flawed she is, I adore her. A day without seeing her feels like 3 years apart. Every moment is filled with longing, acceptance, and indulgence." I was stunned, staring blankly at Jiyu Weizhou. Is this the kind of thing a major villain should say? What happened to the promised madness? What happened to the aloofness? How did he come up with such sudden, flirtatious words? My gaze was too direct. and Ji Wei-ju suddenly turned his head, glaring at me fiercely. Are you done staring? I nodded as if possessed. Then I noticed his ears had actually turned red, red, red. The contrastingly cute big villain is just too adorable. He pulled me to turn and leave, but after taking just 2 steps, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at Liu Bingxi, who was still standing in place. He said, if you still don't believe me, how about making a bet with me, since Zhao Sisi was able to find you? The Crown Prince will surely be able to as well. Let's see if he comes looking for you within 3 days. What do you say? If you want to leave now, I'll have someone escort you back to the Grand Tutor's residence first thing tomorrow morning. Liu Bingxi thought for a moment, then made up her mind. I'll take the bet. I'll wait here for him. Ah, what a foolish girl. Ji Wei-ju no longer looked at Liu Bingxi and pulled me away from the courtyard. After a while, I heard a voice beside me. What about you? Do you want to leave, or stay? I'm still thinking about everything that happened tonight. Although everything seems to be following the original plot, it feels like something has become strange from some point onward. I didn't quite hear Ji Wei-ju's question clearly, but I nodded reflexively. At least you still have some conscience. Ji Wei-ju's cool voice sounded again. Suddenly I realized what I had just agreed to. I looked up at him and noticed under the moonlight that the big villain's ears were turning increasingly red. As he walked, he suddenly stopped. He turned around abruptly and looked at me. Why are you following me? I rolled my eyes inwardly and raised the hand he was holding. Then why are you holding on to me? He suddenly let go of my wrist, looking slightly uncomfortable. The atmosphere suddenly changed. I wrinkled my nose, looked at him, and quickly changed the subject, asking, why did you tell her? Isn't that a bit too cruel? Don't overthink it. I was just curious, that's all. Ji Wei-ju stared at me for a moment. Just when I thought he wasn't going to answer, he suddenly leaned in and said, although I don't like her, my tutor treated me very well when I was a child. Besides, I can't stand the Crown Prince's frivolous behavior. He's been acting even more recklessly lately. And in the end, the person I like must be someone who truly understands me, for no reason. My heart grew restless. Do you understand? Gazing at Ji Wei-ju, who was right in front of me, and recalling tonight's embrace, I suddenly realized that I seemed to have developed feelings. As Ji Wei-ju leaned in closer and closer, I abruptly pushed him away, turned around, and ran off. After running a few steps, I looked back at him, who was still standing there in a daze, and waved my hand. I understand. Behind me was Ji Wei-ju's light chuckle. Back in my room, I hid under the covers. Tossing and turning, I had always considered myself an observer of this world. It wasn't until today that I truly realized, whether it was Ji Wei-ju or Liu Bingxi, they weren't just cold, two-dimensional characters, but living, breathing beings with warmth and depth, and I have come to understand my own heart. The next day, with dark circles under my eyes, I went to Ji Wei-ju's courtyard early, determined to be brave. On the second day, Ji Wei-ju's words from the previous day kept echoing in my mind. After much hesitation and pacing back and forth, I decided to be brave just once. Mushin was utterly surprised to see me waiting outside the courtyard so early. I saw Ji Wei-ju come out and quickly stepped forward, taking a deep breath. Ji Wei-ju, Tanji Buns on Suzaku Street. Ji Wei-ju seemed not to understand, looking at me with confusion. I don't like Tanji Buns on Suzaku Street at all, so don't you dare bring me any. After saying in one breath what I had thought about all night, I turned around and ran off swiftly, looking quite suave, leaving behind a stunned crowd. Crazy, crazy. When Wanwan, you must be crazy. Just like that, every half an hour, I would just happen to stroll past the gate. Finally, Ji Wei-ju returned. A bit earlier than usual, I pretended to casually glance at him, noticing his empty hands, and then, unwilling to give up, I looked behind him at Mushin, who also had nothing in his hands. At that moment, my heart felt heavy with sadness. What a coincidence. The weather is so nice today. You're back, I said awkwardly. Ji Wei-ju glanced at the overcast sky and looked at me as if I were an idiot. It's about to rain. Then he took a paper bag out of his pocket and handed it to me. Eat up. I rushed over to him and snatched it away. Ji Wei-ju looked at me, overjoyed, and said with disdain, so happy, is it that good? I grabbed a bun and shoved it toward his mouth. My hands are clean, you'll know once you try it. Ji Weiju gently swatted my hand away, looking at me with my cheeks puffed out. I munched on the warm steamed bun as I walked side by side with him. Just as we were about to reach his courtyard gate, I suddenly stopped in front of him. Loving someone means acceptance, tolerance, and indulgence. I sized up Ji Weiju. So you're indulgent toward me, right? Ji Weiju just looked at me quietly like that. Time suddenly became very slow. So slow that I thought there would be no response. Liu Bingxi to the crown prince. I tried hard not to appear embarrassed. Suddenly, Ji Weiju leaned close to my ear, so close that I could see the fine hairs on his face, smell the faint sandalwood scent on him, and hear his thumping heartbeat. I won't tolerate, indulge, or spoil you. Only the faint tremor in his voice had already betrayed him. I'm fine now, I can do it, I can continue fighting again. The big villain, the Tsunda, you're the one who will always be tolerant, forgiving, and even indulgent toward me. I don't know how I made it back to the courtyard, probably just happy. Having love reciprocated truly feels wonderful. Back in the courtyard, I went back to sleep with a heart full of joy and had a sweet, delightful dream. Then I was awakened by the sound of sobbing. I woke up groggily to find Liu Bingxi sitting by my bedside at some point. Seeing me awake, she quickly wiped her tears with a handkerchief and said in a choked voice, "Wanwan, I'm sorry for waking you." Liu Bingxi was holding a letter in her hand, already soaked with tears. I knew it must be a letter from the male lead, Jiyu Xuanji. It turned out that after that day, Liu Bingxi had not given up. Instead, she wrote a letter to Jiyu Xuanji, informing him that she was at the third prince's villa and hoping he would come to find her and bring her back. She also told him about Zhao Cixi sending someone to kill her that day. I looked at Liu Bingxi before me. She had long lost her former vitality and seemed utterly lifeless. Love truly is a double-edged sword. I snatched the letter from her hand and quickly scanned its contents. It was essentially Jiyu Xuanji reprimanding her, telling her to maintain her integrity and avoid excessive contact with the third prince. He also warned her not to make baseless assumptions, insisting that his beloved Zhao Cixi was a kind person and incapable of such malicious actions. Finally, he demanded that Liu Bingxi return to the capital immediately and cease her entanglement with the third prince, Jiyu Weiju. This heartless and ungrateful person didn't utter a single word of concern for Liu Bingxi throughout the entire conversation. All he said was to tell Liu Bingxi not to drag him down, while also defending his own white moonlight. So infuriating. What a scumbag. I sighed and pulled Liu Bingxi into my arms, gently patting her back. If you want to cry, just cry, it'll make you feel better. Someone like him isn't worth it. Wanwan, why has he become so unfamiliar? Clearly, I'm the one who was wronged, so why doesn't he believe me? Why doesn't he come looking for me? With that, Liu Bingxi cried even more sorrowfully. Just then, Jiyu Weiju came looking for me and said coldly, "I told you he was a heartless and ungrateful man. Are you finally convinced now?" I blinked at Jiyu Weiju. If not for Jiyu Weiju's approval, this letter would never have reached Jiyu Xuanji's hands, and I was well aware of it. Upon hearing this, Liu Bingxi cried even more bitterly. "Miss Liu, you should have given up long ago. Do you still plan to look for him when you return to the capital?" Wanwan, I should have let him go long ago. It's just that after all these years, I couldn't bear to. But I realize now that I was wrong. I gently pushed her away, looked into her eyes, and spoke earnestly. "There are plenty of fish in the sea. Why cling to a crooked tree? Bingxi, you are so wonderful. You will definitely find the one who is most suitable for you. Keep going." Liu Bingxi, with red-rimmed eyes, gazed at me and nodded firmly. She was about to speak again when suddenly Steward Yu hurried over. "Your Highness, the Crown Prince has arrived." "What? You scumbag really know how to time things perfectly." Jiyu Weiju glanced at me and Liu Bingxi, then turned and left first with Butler Yu. After Liu Bingxi and I tidied up for a while, we then headed to the front hall. By the time Liu Bingxi and I arrived, the atmosphere in the front hall was far from pleasant. Jiyu Weiju still wore an indifferent expression, sitting in the seat of honor, elegantly sipping his tea, and our male lead, the Crown Prince Jiyu Xuanji, had a face as dark as thunder. Seeing Liu Bingxi and me enter, he suddenly stood up, walked over to Liu Bingxi, and said loudly, "Miss Liu seems to have forgotten her roots. Just because of a little gossip, You're so eager to throw yourself into my younger brother's arms. As for Miss Zhao, she is virtuous and pure. After this, I don't want to hear any rumors. What the hell? And this guy is the male lead. What a scumbag thing to say. OMG. I stepped forward to shield Liu Bingxi, just about to unleash my words, when Jiyu Weiju moved. Bang! The teacup was set down with a heavy thud. All eyes turned to Jiyu Weiju as he stood up and walked over to us, positioning himself squarely in front of me. He then said unhurriedly, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, a brain is a wonderful thing. It's a pity you don't have one. So cool." So cool, as expected of my ultimate villain. Well countered. I tilted my head slightly, secretly observing Jiyu Xuanji's expression. I saw Jiyu Xuanji's face turn ashen, clearly furious. I was secretly laughing to myself. Suddenly, Liu Bingxi emerged from behind me. She walked up to Jiyu Xuanji, her expression agitated. "Xuanji, this is the last time I'll call you that. We grew up together, so you know my character well. The third prince has never overstepped any boundaries. Our relationship is completely innocent. As for Miss Zhao, you'd rather believe her than me. The bond of our youth ends here today." After saying this, Liu Bingxi took a step back, bowed to Jiyu Xuanji, and said coldly, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, please do as you wish." Then she turned around, took my hand, and walked out of the main hall. "Wait, where are we going, miss? Where are we going?" Just like that, I was dragged out of the front hall by Liu Bingxi. The battlefield showdown came to an end just like that. After leaving the front hall, Liu Bingxi pulled me towards the outside of the mansion, and I immediately panicked. "Miss Liu Bingxi, where are we going?" "Of course, back to the capital," Liu Bingxi said, her beautiful eyes full of confusion as she looked at me. But, in this remote wilderness, how are we supposed to get back?" "Walk." Liu Bingxi let go of my hand and patted her own head. "Oh, right, I was just too angry earlier. I'll go find the third prince right now and ask him to send a carriage to take us back to the capital. I thank you." Just when I felt life was no longer worth living, Butler Yu hurriedly chased after us from behind. "Please wait, young ladies. In critical moments, it's always the elderly who come through. Look." He must be reluctant to see me go, so, the next moment, we were taken back again. The atmosphere in the front hall was still awkward, though it was slightly better than before. Jiyu Weiju remained aloof and cold, while Jiyu Xuanji had lost his earlier arrogance and sat dejectedly in his chair. As soon as Liu Bingxi entered the room, she bowed to Jiyu Weiju, who was seated at the head, and said, "My apologies, third prince, I was rude earlier. Could you please arrange a carriage to take Wanwan and me back to the capital? I would be deeply grateful." Why are you taking me away? I don't want to go." I desperately made eye signals at Jiyu Weiju, but for some reason, he didn't say a word. At this moment, the Crown Prince stood up. "There's no need to trouble my younger brother, Bingxi. Allow me to escort you and this young lady back to the capital." Liu Bingxi was slightly taken aback for a moment, then spoke coldly. "In that case, I thank your Highness the Crown Prince." And so, for the second time, I was pulled away from the front hall by Liu Bingxi. "Are we leaving already? Can you bear to part with it?" I glanced back at Jiyu Weiju, who was still sitting there, gazing in the direction we had left, lost in thought. What a foolish, stubborn fool. As the ancients said, when it comes to love, one must be bold yet attentive and thick-skinned. So I broke free from Liu Bingxi's hand and, under everyone's gaze, ran towards Jiyu Weiju. I crouched beside the chair, clutching the hem of his clothes, wailing and sobbing, "I won't leave, I won't leave. How could you bear to let me go? I'm the long-lost, non-blood-related niece of the neighbor old Wang's family, uncle." Perhaps my voice was too pitiful, as everyone's eyes turned towards me. No one knew that at that moment, all I could think about were Shen's steamed bun shop, the Yun Duan by Hua Kun dress, and the red agate. "Uncle." Jiyu Weizhou's face instantly turned ashen. "Uncle, have you forgotten? I held you when you were a child." I cried with genuine emotion, my words incoherent and chaotic, convincing enough. "Right." I took a moment to glance at Jiyu Weiju, but the man before me now looked even more grim. He stood up, pulled me to my feet, then shook off my hand, his tone icy as he said, "Go, once you're gone. The mansion will finally be peaceful, no more noise and commotion." I truly couldn't be happier. I watched his hurriedly retreating figure and wiped away non-existent tears. I shouted loudly at his back. Forget about me. I won't tell you that my home is the third house on South Street, the wealthiest when residents in the city. Under the stunned gazes of the male and female leads, I bounced over to Liu Bingxi's side and contentedly linked arms with her. Bingxi, let's go back. Liu Bingxi looked puzzled and finally asked, are you two okay? We're fine. Of course we're fine. We're doing great. This is a secret between me and the big villain, our exclusive code. I looked at Liu Bingxi's worried face, casually comforted her with a few words, then took her hand and headed out of the mansion. Once in the carriage, I lifted the curtain and gazed at the retreating villa in the distance. I comforted myself inwardly. You big Tsunder, you must come to see me. If you don't, I'll go watch you on your way to court. Back in the capital, Liu Bingxi and I each returned to our own residences. Life had to go on, as the days passed. If there was any change in my daily routine, it was that I no longer lingered in bed. Another change was that I would take my maid, Lanju, for a walk to the street corner every day before dawn. I called it exercising. I'm not going to run into Jiu Weiju on purpose. And every day when Jiu Weiju sees me, he looks disgusted. Although he still brings me Shunji's buns, his tone is still Tsunder. Tired of them, don't like them, I'm going to buy them for you anyway, so you can eat your fill. Don't think I don't know. Shunji is in the opposite direction of both your way to work and your way home. Then I would make the request for the next day. We both always enjoyed this immensely, while Mushin and Lanju, after their initial shock, became numb to it. But for some reason, the one who delivered gifts to me every day was no longer Jiu Weiju, but a guard named Mufeng whom I had never seen before. I also asked Mufeng where Jiu Weiju had gone, and he only told me that Jiu Weiju had received an imperial decree and went south on official business. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. By the 10th day, I was utterly panicked. According to the plot in the book, Jiu Weiju shouldn't have disappeared like this, so on the 11th day, I arranged to meet Liu Bingxi at my family's restaurant. I was overjoyed to see Liu Bingxi fully recovered, but I was even more worried about Jiu Weiju. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, I got straight to the point and explained the purpose of my visit today. Seeing Liu Bingxi's hesitant expression, I took the initiative to ask, Bingxi, has something happened to him? Liu Bingxi looked troubled, then bit her lip and said to me in a low voice,